Hi, this is Christy at the West Regional Branch of the Mobile Public Library. We are bringing you some more hand lettering designs. Let's get started. For this one, you may notice I have already mapped this out, and I mapped it out 3, 4, 5 times. So just a heads up, you are going to need to really work on getting the spacing on this one. All right, so this is Let Your Dreams Be Bigger Than Your Fears. And it's, well, the color palette and everything, we've chosen the fonts. It winds up having sort of a faux Parisian look, okay? But remember, before you get started, that you need to go ahead and erase each part before you do it, okay? Leave enough that you can still see, but you want most of that pencil mark gone, or it might bleed through, okay? So in order to do this, I am going to be using a combination of the hard tip and soft tip Fudenosuke pens. We've used the soft tip before, but we haven't really used the hard tip. Now, what's the advantage? The hard tip helps you to fill in pretty easily because it's just almost more like a marker. The soft tip gives you the much more fluid lines. So I'm actually going to start out up here with a hard tip, and then we're going to go to the soft tip once we do dreams, okay? So hard tip to start, soft tip, and I'll tell you when we change. Okay, so we're just gonna go over this guy. All right, seems like maybe a minor thing, but it winds up being fairly important actually. And you can still see it enough that it works as your guideline, okay? All right, so let's pull out our Fudenosuke, and the black one is the soft tip. Now they're both black ink, but this one, the actual pen, the body of the pen, looks a little more navy. All right, so here we go. We're gonna start out, and you'll notice that it's much sharper and crisper than when you use the soft tip. It has a little flexibility to it, but don't try to press it down and get like a thick and thin type thing going. That's not what this is for. This is usually used for outlining, and like I said, just to get sharp, crisp lines. All right, so fill this guy in. All right, so it's going to take you a minute to get all this done. So just take your time. And you can use an ultra fine Sharpie if you like. That gives a similar result. I just happen to have fallen in love with these Fudenosukes, and so I like the results they give me. You can always come back and fill in if you see any white spots. But see how that's so crisp? All right, so now on to our E. So we are going to fast forward and through the magic of video get this done and come back to you all when we have the first words done. All right, so we'll see you back in a second. And so the next thing we are going to do is we are actually going to color in our box before we draw the letters. I found out the hard way. You want to do that. I knew better, but I still did. Let me just show you. Still did this guy. And it's not terrible, but you might notice the little black in places, right? Okay, so don't do that. Let's just go ahead and we're going to erase dreams just a little bit. And then we are going to use a technique that we have used together before. Now again, you're going to want your patience for this because it's going to be, you know, a little time consuming, but it's kind of zen-like if you get the zone with it. All right. And what it winds up looking like is sort of a faux watercolor. So for those of you who maybe have wanted to kind of dabble in watercolors, this is a fun way to come at it. And it just gives a softer look. Like, I'm going to go with this lavender. You could just start coloring it in, but you're going to get where it just literally looks like markers. And it might not be the prettiest look. So, I have a little palette that I've made before. All I did was take a piece of cardstock and laminate it. But you can use anything that has sort of a hard plastic surface. You can even use just a Ziploc bag. I've seen YouTubers who do that. So take whatever color it is you want. Kind of saturate your palette, because think of this as being your paint, right? So we're going to need a whole lot of that. We'll come back and do more later. Then we're going to pick up our clear brush pen that we have. We want to make sure that you take like a scrap piece of paper and go over the tip just a little to make sure it's clean. That's how you get the ink off of this, okay? So we're going to dip it in. And yes, it makes that wretched squeaking noise, but we are going to dip it in this purple. And then I've discovered that you can do one of two ways. You can do little short choppy strokes like that, or you can do little circles. And it depends on what you want it to look like. Now keep in mind, this is going to have variations in color just like watercolor, okay? So it's not going to all be this super saturated lavender that you see. It's going to begin to change color some, all right? And that's actually what I want it to look like. That may not be the look you want, and so you determine how you want your background to look. But I want it to have this very soft look, like I've gone and done some watercolor strokes on here, okay? And you're going to need to keep turning your brush and keep picking up the ink from the marker. And you can do these short little strokes. Of course, you want to try to get a sharp on the edge, but don't worry too much about that, because you're going to outline your box in black. But you want it to be as straight as you can. That'll make it easier on you. So pay real close attention when you're coming to the edges, okay? And the good thing is, you can come back over it. Now remember, I told you, you gotta be super careful in the sense of not oversaturating your paper, okay? So you might just go for a little bit and then move on to the next section. And then later you can come back to it. So we're gonna add a little bit more purple here. And on the previous one, I used sort of a rose color, so you could do that. I just wanted a soft, really feminine palette to go with it. See how you get all these different colors of purple in there. And once it dries, it actually is going to dry a little lighter than what you're seeing here at the moment. So it's actually going to be a little more blended. And you can see this is going to take us quite a while to get through this guy, since we're only done what, maybe a fourth of it. It's going to take a little bit of time. That's okay. Okay, so while we were away, I finished up the background color and went ahead and did the border. Now here's a tip. Try to let the purple or whatever color dry a little bit before you do this. Also, this is a little trick I learned. If you want, go ahead and put a blank piece of paper right up against there, and then put your ruler and then draw your line. Before you lift anything, drag the ruler back onto the spare piece of paper, because if you don't, it tends to drag the ink and make it bleed. Okay, so you'll get a little sharper line there. Now I'm going to go ahead and work on the bottom for a minute, because this is still a little damp and I don't want to begin to draw our words in there and then it bleed. So we're going to go on down here to be bigger, but we need to erase a little bit like we do. Make certain that that pencil mark doesn't show up. Let's just do a little bit like that. But you definitely want to let that color block dry for just a little bit before you start trying to write in it, or else that black ink will bleed on you because it's pretty wet after you've done your little faux watercolor technique. So let's go ahead and just erase all these guys while we're down here. Seems so counterintuitive, doesn't it, to draw and then erase it, but it works, so we do it. All right, let's get rid of our schmutz and come back to Be Bigger. Now I'm sticking to the hard tip for now. So we just want good sharp lines. We're not worried about anything curvy. Those little serifs on, and we're going to go ahead and do our little side rays. And if they don't come out to your liking, you can go back over. Sometimes this hard tip can be just a little finicky. You have to have just the right pressure for it to obey you. Okay, and put our little lines over here. And we are getting there. Alright, so we're going to go to this one. I think I'm going to swap to our soft tip. This is a good place to do that because we've got that little more flexibility so that we can really get our thick and thin. See how much different that was with the soft tip? You'd have to really press down, and that's not good for that hard tip. And it gives us really fluid lines, which is so nice. So fun to work with. Alright, then and I'm just a little off from my pencil mark, so we can go back and erase more. It's no big deal. Don't ever fret over anything with it. Okay, and we can kind of clean those up just a hair. Here and there, wherever you need a little touch up is fine. Okay, and we are going to swap right back to that hard tip to do the word fears because we're going to do it in a printed font and we want it to be a little thinner. So actually press down a little bit when you get around to that left side because we're going to have our thick and thin, okay? Gives it a little character. Keeps it from being too plain. And then we're going to add our little embellishments. Just a little curly Q. And those things just help balance and take up some of the white space. Okay, so while we're here, we're going to get rid of the rest of that pencil and give that purple just one more second to dry itself. So again, never worry if you kind of get off from your pencil marks. Those are just some guidelines, just suggestions. Okay, so we want to go for our soft tip, which remember is the black looking one. And we're going to write the word dreams. And we're going to make it really curly Q. Come around. Okay. Make this guy into a flourish. And if it seems like it doesn't want to really be saturated because it's on top of all that watercolor we did, you can always go back and go over it. Give it a little more depth of color. Alright, just kind of drag it down. And you can add as many flourishes or as few as you like. I just like this particular design to have a lot. Just want it to be really frou-frou. Alright, and there you have it. Hopefully you will feel like that all that extra effort was worth it. So let your dreams be bigger than your fears. Thanks for watching and have a great day.